The global economy is a complex web. Goods flow between nations, it's interconnected. Sometimes, though, those connections fray. Competition boils over. Welcome to the world of trade wars. The US and China, two economic giants, are locked in a trade war. Tariffs, restrictions, and retaliations are flying back and forth. This isn't just about economics. It's about power, technology, and the future of global trade. The stakes are high. Businesses are caught in the crossfire. Consumers feel the pinch. The world watches nervously. This trade war could reshape the global order, so buckle up. We're diving into the US-China trade war, its past, its present, and its potentially messy future. History, as they say, rhymes. And when it comes to trade wars, the rhymes can be pretty damn ominous. Let's rewind. The Opium Wars of the 19th century are a stark reminder of how trade imbalances can lead to conflict. Britain, hooked on Chinese tea, flooded China with opium, creating a devastating addiction crisis. The resulting wars weakened China, forcing it into unequal treaties. Fast forward to the 1930s. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, a classic example of protectionism gone wrong, slapped tariffs on thousands of imports to the US. The result? Global trade collapsed. The Great Depression deepened. Not exactly a shining moment for free trade. And then there's the more recent history of US-China trade tensions. The 2018 to 2021 trade war, initiated under the Trump administration, saw tariffs levied on billions of dollars worth of goods. It was a shot across the bow, and it set the stage for the current conflict. The current US-China trade war is less about soybeans and more about something far more valuable: technology. Specifically, semiconductors. Semiconductors are the brains of modern electronics. They're in everything from smartphones to cars to fighter jets, and the US, for now, dominates the high-end chip market. But China is catching up. It's investing heavily in its own chip industry. This worries the US. They see China's technological rise as a threat, both economically and militarily. So, the US has doubled down. They've imposed strict export restrictions, limiting China's access to advanced chips and chip-making equipment. Companies like Huawei, a Chinese tech giant, have been blacklisted. The message is clear. America wants to keep China's technological ambitions in check. The US may have the upper hand in semiconductors for now, but China has a trump card of its own: rare earth elements. These aren't precious gems. They're a group of obscure but essential minerals. Think gallium, germanium, and dysprosium. They're used in everything from smartphones and electric car batteries to wind turbines and missile guidance systems. And guess what? China controls a big chunk of the world's rare earth production. It's been using this dominance strategically, imposing export restrictions of its own. In 2023, China restricted the export of gallium and germanium, two metals crucial for semiconductor production. The message was clear: mess with us on tech, and we'll mess with you right back. This rare earth counterpunch has sent shockwaves through global supply chains. It's a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of the global economy and the potential for disruption when those connections are weaponized. Shifting sands: global trade in flux. The US-China trade war isn't just a bilateral spat. It's a seismic event with far-reaching consequences. It's causing ripples across the global economy. Alliances are shifting, and the very fabric of international trade is being rewoven. Supply chains are being reconfigured, with companies scrambling to adapt to the new reality. The old order is being challenged, and the established norms of global trade are being upended. For decades, globalization reigned supreme, driving unprecedented economic growth and interconnectivity. Companies built complex supply chains spanning the globe, chasing the lowest costs and maximizing efficiency. China, with its vast manufacturing capacity and cheap labor, became the world's factory, producing goods at an unprecedented scale. But the trade war has exposed the vulnerabilities of this hyper-globalized system, revealing its fragility. Companies are now diversifying, moving production away from China to other countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico in search of stability. This China Plus One strategy is a direct response to the trade war's uncertainties, aiming to mitigate risks. The US, meanwhile, is trying to rally its allies, forming new trade blocs and partnerships to counter China's growing economic might, reshaping the global trade landscape. The world is dividing into competing economic spheres of influence, each vying for dominance. The era of unfettered globalization is over, giving way to a more fragmented and competitive global economy. The trade war has ushered in a new era of geoeconomic competition, one where trade is as much about geopolitics as it is about economics. Nations are now navigating a complex web of economic and political interests, redefining the future of global trade. Interdependence and risk, a delicate balance. The US-China trade war has exposed another uncomfortable truth. We live in an interconnected world, for better or worse. Our economies are deeply intertwined, and the flow of goods and services across borders is a testament to this complex web of interdependence. The things we rely on, the products we consume, often come from far-flung corners of the globe. From the electronics in our pockets to the food on our tables, global supply chains make it all possible. This interdependence can be a source of strength, fostering cooperation and shared prosperity. Nations working together can achieve more than they ever could alone, creating a network of mutual benefit. But, as the trade war shows, it can also be a source of vulnerability. When tensions rise, the very connections that bind us can become points of contention, leading to economic instability and uncertainty. When supply chains are disrupted, when essential goods become bargaining chips, the risks are real. The impact can be felt by businesses and consumers alike, leading to shortages and increased prices. China's dominance in rare earth elements is a case in point. These minerals are crucial for the production of high-tech devices, electric vehicles, and renewable energy technologies. These minerals are essential for so many industries. Without them, the production of many modern technologies would come to a halt, highlighting the critical nature of these resources. Yet, the world relies heavily on China for their supply. This gives China leverage. It can influence global markets and exert pressure on other nations by controlling the availability of these vital materials. It can, and has, used this leverage to its advantage. By restricting exports or raising prices, China can impact industries worldwide, demonstrating the power of control over critical resources. The trade war is forcing countries to rethink their reliance on single suppliers, to diversify their supply chains, and to invest in domestic production of critical goods. This shift aims to reduce vulnerability and increase self-sufficiency. The goal? To build more resilient economies, less susceptible to the whims of geopolitical rivals. By strengthening domestic capabilities and fostering diverse international partnerships, nations can better navigate the complexities of global interdependence. Currency clashes. Challenging the dollar's reign. The trade war isn't just about tariffs and technology, it's also about the mighty US dollar. For decades, the dollar has been the world's reserve currency. It's the currency used for international trade, the currency held by central banks around the world. This gives the US enormous economic power, but China, along with other emerging economies, is trying to chip away at the dollar's dominance. They're looking for alternatives, ways to reduce their reliance on the US financial system. Enter the BRICS nations Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They're pushing for greater use of their own currencies in international trade. They're establishing their own financial institutions like the New Development Bank as alternatives to the World Bank and the IMF. This move towards a multipolar currency system is still in its early stages, but it has the potential to reshape the global financial order. And the US, unsurprisingly, is watching these developments with a wary eye. A call to action, collaboration, or conflict. The US-China trade war is a wake-up call. It's a stark reminder that the dynamics of global trade are shifting rapidly, and the old paradigms are no longer sufficient to navigate these turbulent waters. It's a reminder that we're at a crossroads. The decisions we make now will determine the future trajectory of international relations and economic stability. The old rules of globalization are fraying. Long-standing agreements are being questioned, and the very fabric of international cooperation is under strain. The global economy is in flux. The future is uncertain. Markets are volatile, and the economic landscape is more unpredictable than ever before. So, what do we do? How do we navigate this complex and ever-changing environment? Do we retreat into protectionism, building walls and fighting over a shrinking pie? Do we isolate ourselves in an attempt to preserve what we have? Or do we find ways to cooperate to build a more stable and equitable global trading system? Can we forge new alliances and create frameworks that benefit all parties involved? The answer is not simple. It requires thoughtful deliberation and a willingness to engage in difficult conversations. There are no easy solutions. The path forward is fraught with challenges and uncertainties. But one thing is clear. Burying our heads in the sand is not an option. Ignoring the issues will only exacerbate the problems. We need to have a serious conversation about the future of global trade. We must come together to discuss and debate the best path forward. We need to ask ourselves tough questions. What are our priorities? What kind of world do we want to build? What role should trade play in our world? How can we ensure that it promotes prosperity and fairness? How do we balance national interests with the need for global cooperation? Can we find a middle ground that respects both? How do we create a trading system that works for everyone, not just for the powerful? Inclusivity and fairness must be at the heart of our efforts. These are not just academic questions. They have real-world implications that affect our daily lives. They're questions that will shape the world our children inherit. The stakes are incredibly high, and the answers we choose today will have consequences for generations to come. Our decisions will echo through time, impacting the lives of future generations. Charting the course of global trade. The U.S.-China trade war is a complex and evolving story. There are no easy answers. But understanding the historical context, the economic forces at play, and the geopolitical implications is crucial. We are at a pivotal moment in history. The decisions we make today will determine the course of global trade for decades to come. Will we choose collaboration or conflict? Will we build a more equitable and sustainable global economy? Or will we retreat into protectionism and rivalry? The choice is ours. Let's choose wisely.